Радиоподкаст о рок-музыке.
Hi, Ralf.
Hi.
Do you hear me well? Do you see me?
Yes.
Great.
Right.
Thank you for accepting.
No problem at all. We're very welcome. No problem.
My name is Ashatos Kimbaev. I live in Kazakhstan, and my main business is a creative thing. And my hobby since '92 is drums, heavy metal, and all that stuff.
Okay, very good.
So, and I have digital platform called the Radio Show Armatura with lots of audio podcasts, video reviews, and interviews with very interesting people.
Okay.
And I think that Poltergeist is very interesting band.
Okay. Why is that? Why do you think it's very interesting?
First of all, you are old school. You are guys from that very gold time.
Mm-hmm.
And second thing is that you keep on thrashing, keep on playing metal the way it was meant to be, and your last album is just awesome. I mean, so I prepared certain questions regarding the album.
No problem, sure.
And regarding other stuff.
You can ask me whatever you want. Basically.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
So first question, can you tell me why do you have such a name for the album, Feather of Truth? What did you mean by that?
What it's about? Okay, Feather of Truth, as the title says, it's about a story from the ancient Egyptian mythology, and especially our guitar player V.O. Pulver. He's one of the original founding members. He's very much into Egyptian mythology. And so he visited the pyramids and ancient sacred sites as such very often. And it was always his dream to somehow get some of these topics into songs. And the title track and the album cover artwork is based on that story. And it's about the view of the ancient Egyptians in relation to death and what happens when someone dies. And when someone died, they believed that you had to face like a court, and your heart was weighed against a feather. And if your heart was heavier than the feather, that would mean that you you lived a very bad life, And if your heart was the equal weight of the feather or even lighter, that would mean that you lived a good life, and you would come to a happy place. So that's basically what it's about, and it's about the Egyptian goddess Maat, M-A-A-T. That's the goddess that is doing the weighing of the heart against the feather. So that's the whole story. There's so much more about it. So if you're interested to find out more, just Google it, and there are plenty of Wikipedia stories about that as well.
You know what? I'm gonna buy a vinyl of your last album, and I hope that there will be some things referring to the story inside.
There are. Yeah. You can see it on the cover artwork. He did a brilliant job putting little details on there. Yeah.
And who was the artist? Who was the painter?
The graphic artist is a guy called Roberto Toderico. He's from Italy, from Naples. And he did the cover artwork of our last album, and he did cover artworks for bands like a lot of death metal bands like Sinister and Legion of the Damned, and some huge open air festivals in Europe like Hellfest and Partisan and places like that. But he did also cover artwork for new wave of British heavy metal bands like Tigers of Pantang and
Mm.
you know, very, very old bands as well. Yeah, he's a little bit younger than us, but he has a very good feeling to incorporate certain details into his artwork, and he's such a communicative guy, so it's very easy to communicate with him and tell him what we would like to see on the cover artwork. So that's it. Yeah. He's a great guy. Yeah.
Very interesting story. I'm gonna find more about him. And actually, I remember the cover artwork from your previous album. So
Yes, exactly.
can you tell me why you decided to release the album during these strange times during lockdown? Does it mean that you had so much time that you concentrated on the release and finalization of the album, or was it just pre-planned before?
It wasn't a master plan at all, but actually that's a very good question you're asking, because as you know, a lot of bands postponed their releases to next year or even the year after, and we never really we actually never really talked about it. It was just for us, it was clear, okay, the songs are done, the recordings were done, we had a new record label, and we had a new contract and so on, and it was totally natural for us to release it this year. And in hindsight, I must say it was the right decision, because I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that there will be a greater flood of releases next year than this year. So that would mean, you know, as a smaller band, it's very easy that your album just loses its impact, you know, when there are so many other albums coming out. Right. So for us, it was the right time, but it wasn't a master plan at all. It was just, you know, I think we were just lucky, because all the details, all the dates and everything just fell into place, and it was just, it was a natural thing. Yeah.
You know what? I think that the fact that you released it during lockdown is so good, because what do people do when they're locked inside? They listen to music, they read books, they watch TVs, and I think that's why you get such a wonderful feedback about the album from different countries and by different media. I think, maybe we can call you lucky.
Maybe people just spend a little more time each day to, you know, to actually really listen to music. Yeah. As we know, most people are very, very busy. All of us, especially when we're getting older, we are living our lives and we have all our stuff to do and so on and so on. So it's not easy nowadays to stand out in comparison to the 1980s, when there were less bands and there wasn't any internet around and so on and so on.
Yeah, the only way to listen to any music was to get off your sofa, go to a music store, buy cassette or whatever, vinyl, and then you really listen to it.
Exactly. Or we exchanged, I exchanged tapes with people all over the world, like, you know, like pen pals.
Yeah.
And I had relatives because I'm originally from Germany, and I had relatives in the German Democratic Republic, which was occupied by Russia, and we sent tapes back and forth and so on. It was very, very interesting times back then.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you refer to 80s. Why do you think, what is more difficult now is it more difficult to create metal music nowadays, or was it much easier during 80s?
Another very good question. I'd say it isn't more difficult nowadays to write songs because you know, I can only speak for myself or the guys I'm playing with in bands, because we're all playing in bands since, I don't know, 35, almost 40 years, and we never stopped. When we most of us began at the age of 13, 14, we began to play our instrument, and we never stopped doing it, and then we never stopped writing, we never stopped being creative, you know. And so I don't think it was, well, I don't think it is more difficult now than it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I think running a band and taking care of promotion and getting to play live, getting bookings, getting gigs and so on, that has changed drastically.
Mm-hmm.
And what has changed even more drastically is, of course, the topic of album sales in total, because everything's for free, everything is out there, and the only way to cover our cost for a new album production is by selling t-shirts, selling merchandise. So, but that's the case for all bands, not only for us. It's we're all in the same boat here. Obviously, bigger bands like Exodus and Testament and Slayer and so on, they sell a lot more t-shirts, of course, but they depend on that income. Without that income, they couldn't finance touring, and they couldn't pay their technical crew and so on and so on.
Right.
So I think that's more difficult nowadays than it was back then.
But from other side, from creative point of view, actually, I'm a big fan of old school thrash metal, and I love Testament, Slayer, and other bands. But I'm really tired of looking at the same pictures at modern t-shirts. I mean, you have to change. You have to come up with something different. There's no point to repeat the cover of your album everywhere. And I think that's one of the things that smaller bands can really play with, because the bigger bands, they are very slow in taking decisions, or their management is against that, and so on and so on. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, the less people are involved, the faster you could work. And especially for smaller bands in general, you are not depending on management and stuff like that. You know, it's basically we can do whatever we want. You know, if we want to, I'm just saying we won't do it, but if we would like to record a progressive rock album, we could totally do it, because no one would say, no, you're not allowed to. You know, we could totally do it. Obviously, we won't, because it's a speed thrash metal band, of course. But I'm just saying, you know, there are in a creative sense, there are no limits, obviously, and that's what I totally agree with you, is that smaller bands, more unknown bands, they are the ones that are nowadays creating the really interesting stuff. Whereas the bigger bands, obviously, they stick to their stuff, what they are known for. You know, they play it safe, so they won't lose fans and so on and so on. But on the other hand, I mean, if you, for example, take a band like AC/DC, they for almost 50 years they were playing the same stuff, the same songs, but they're still, I mean, a lot of people don't like them. I personally always liked them. Obviously I liked the years with Bon Scott singing the best, because that was my childhood. But they were basically, they're doing their thing, and they just kept on doing that, and they didn't care what everyone else was doing. So that's something else that I must admire. Or bands like Rush or CC, you know, the big bands from the 70s, for example. You know, it's a brilliant thing, and it's bold and brave to do that. You know, when when you're going for that long and trends come and go and you just stick to your stuff because that's what you like, that's what you want to do. So it's, yeah, like you said, I mean, on one hand, there are a lot of generic bands, and especially bands from bigger labels. The promotional photos, they all look the same.
Yeah.
The covers, there are wonderful covers, you know, a lot of colors, and you know, the whole marketing concept is fitting to everything, to every little detail and so on. But it's not like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I miss that fire, you know, that ignition that was in the 80s. It was wild and raw, and nobody cared if you had your glasses on photos or not, because no one cared actually, you know. So,
you know, I have a feeling that the more popular band becomes, so they don't feel really hungry like they were before.
yeah.
The less they struggle to create something interesting, something new, something really the way that they did before. So I call those 80s like hungry years, but now for the bands, for the most bands, it's like they're not hungry anymore, and they are fine with what they do. But what about Poltergeist, Testament, Slayer? I mean, even Metallica, all those big shots, they experimented with the sound corresponding to the decade, like new metal, grunge, whatever. But Poltergeist was always straightforward, thrash and speed metal. Do you have an idea why so?
Well, it's a good question. You know, I think a lot of that has to do with the way we write songs, or I must say wrote songs in the past, because in the first 3 albums they were almost completely written by the guitar player, V.O. Pulver, and so he has his kind of signature way of playing. And he told me a couple of times, because when we were jamming, sometimes we play like you know, Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath cover songs and so on, and even now and then I'm a bass player, so sometimes I play something completely different. And he tries to play along, and then he says, well, we better stop here, because when he's saying about himself that everything he plays sounds like metal. So it even if he would play funky music or something, it would still sound like metal. So that might have something to do with that it's just the way he plays. And for this album, the new album and the last one, I think we as a band, we are, like I mentioned before, we are all more or less the same age. We have more or less the same background, and we don't have to really talk about how a new song for that band must sound like, because we all know how it has to sound, what kind of riffs, what kind of rhythms, what kind of bass lines, what kind of a drum arrangement has to be in there to sound authentic and honest. You know what I mean? It just happens. I think that's just one reason for that might be as well that we all have that experience, and I wouldn't even think of putting different influences in those kind of songs, even though I like a lot of different music. And I like to slap and pop and you know, play stuff like Suicidal Tendencies, you know, all of that. But I personally wouldn't think that it would fit into those kind of songs, even though every now and then there are little details we are experimenting with, but it's not huge, it's just tiny details. So, but that's the best answer I can give you to that question. So yeah.
But it's interesting that you've been playing in 3 more bands, like Requiem, Wolf Council, and Neolithic Regression.
Yes.
So you're really into dark and heavy stuff. You have some grind, you have some death, and it's how do you do that? What's the secret? How can it be everywhere and do it right?
Doing it for so long, maybe, I don't know. The current drummer in Poltergeist, Reto is his name. I'm playing with him for almost 20 years now in bands, and especially for the rhythm section, bass and drums, it's a very healthy relationship, to play together for that long, because we know each other by heart. We don't have to talk about it. It just works. And so I don't know. I always was, music is my passion. It's not a hobby. Nowadays, it's my job. For a couple of years, I learned something different. I worked in a regular job for quite a long time, but I switched a couple of years ago, and I give lessons, and I work as a guitar and bass tech for international touring bands and so on and so on. So it's music is almost 24 hours of my day is surrounded by music, and there's enough time to switch between styles and genres. And the bands you mentioned, a lot of them are very, very fast and very heavy and very brutal. But I play something else. Before we started to talk, I just recorded for a studio project of a friend of mine, because sometimes people just send me stuff and I record it, and then I send it back. So that's a completely different thing. It's a mixture between rock and reggae. So I like diversity. I like doing different stuff, just to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Even though I'm still a metal fan. I'm still the 1980s rock child that I was. It's still inside of me. But as you know, as you grow older, you develop, and your taste is might be a little different than it was 30 years ago.
Wow. Talking about inspiration moments, what are they? When does it strike you? Like, oh, I have that idea, or I have that particular riff, or I don't know. Where does it happen?
That's another thing. I can only speak for myself, because
Sure.
When I studied music, it was one of those topics we talked a lot about in class and with our professors as well. And it's very individual. Everyone is different in that regard. To me, it can happen. It can happen always, or it doesn't happen at all. I can sit on the toilet and all of a sudden a groove comes to mind, or I walk down the street and I hear and maybe hear the train or a vehicle having a certain rhythm, because the motor might be a little bit damaged or something. It can happen wherever. Sometimes, most of the time, when I'm really trying to write something intentionally, I just sit down and I just play. Or sometimes I have a couple of notes in my mind, and I take a piece of paper and I write down the notes, and then I might add some more notes, and then I have the first line or so, and then I go from there. and slowly build it up. So that's the music part, and I write lyrics as well. I have a little black book, and most of the time I have it with me. So every time I sit somewhere or I'm waiting for the bus or something like that, I just write down little notes, or if I see an interesting word, I write that down, and so on. And when the time comes to write new lyrics, I have a whole list of topics and stuff that interests me, and I just go from there. I like to work with a pool of ideas, like a buffet. So, and then I can choose whatever I like that day, because as you know, music or art in general it depends on your day. You know, one day you feel very fit, very fine. The next day you might be a little bit under the weather, and so on. So we're human. You know, it's different each day. So,
Yeah.
but that's how I like to work. So,
yeah, totally agree. Coming back to your album, you said that there are some myths coming from ancient Egypt, but this song, which is called "The Gods of the Seven Rays,"
yes.
who are those gods?
That's a song about finding yourself. It's not about actual gods. It's the gods that it's just a symbol. It's the gods that live inside of us. And you know, when you want to call them gods, some other people would say intuition or emotions or feelings, and so on and so on. And these are the things that most of us humans are guided by our intuition, our emotions, our experiences, and so on and so on. And that's how we find our place in the world, and how we find ourselves, how we you know, begin to try to understand ourselves, how we work, because a lot of people don't understand themselves.
Yeah, totally.
Obviously. Yeah, so that's what that song is about.
Look, coming at the feedback from your album, I have an impression that the country that loves you most is Germany. Is it true in your opinion, or do you know that Poltergeist is loved more, I don't know, in Switzerland or in UK or in France? Do you have such a feeling?
It's difficult to say. Maybe, well, especially for heavy metal music, Germany is the biggest market. I don't like that word, but it's the biggest market in Europe for rock and metal music. And there are a lot of magazines and a lot of people that are involved in the scene and so on. So there might be more good reviews in that country than in smaller countries like, for example, Belgium or the Netherlands, which is in comparison a smaller country. And especially with Switzerland, there are some good reviews here too, but Switzerland is one of those countries that, you know, as long as you don't have a level of success outside the country, you are not really recognized inside the country. You know what I mean? So if we would tour a lot more outside of Switzerland and play big festivals in Germany and so on, all of a sudden people here in Switzerland would recognize it more. But I think that's something, I don't know how it is in your country, but that's probably, yeah, see, I think that's the same thing for all of those bands out there. So most of the times in your own country, you don't get that big support, and unless you have some success outside, and then you come back, and then all of a sudden you're the next big thing.
Or you may like establish connections with those monsters from Switzerland, like Celtic Frost. I don't know.
Yeah, of course, we all know them because they're the same age as us, and they all live. Most of them live around here in the same cities we live. You know, it's yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. But that's just we are part of that scene, and we grow all we started to get more or less started together, and now we're more or less at the same age. So that's it's like everything in life. Some people just have a little bit more success, others don't. But at the end of the day, we are still able to keep on doing what we're doing, and that's what we are grateful for. What more can you ask for? Enough food, a roof over your head, and you can create music. So
yeah. Can you share a dream, or I don't know, a big goal that unites all Poltergeist members? Like, I don't know, play at Wagon main stage for the next 2 or 3 years, or I don't know, get to Hellfest or Grass Pop or whatever. Is there anything like that?
There's probably not just one thing that we all have in common, because even though we play in the same band, we are very different personalities. So, and most of us had the opportunity, and we're lucky enough to play a lot of tours in Europe, even outside of Europe, and we played a lot of big festivals with big names. So we already experienced that, and obviously with the new album we would like to get these new songs on more stages than we had the possibility to so far. But as you know, in the current global situation, it's just not possible. We probably have to wait another year or even more. We don't know. But I don't think there's one single dream for that band. There are a lot more individual dreams. I want to record more interesting albums in different styles and genres for the rest of my life, and I would like to play with our drummer together for another 20 years, for example, and and so on. So I don't think it's only one thing, but we all agree on the fact we would like to play more shows with these new songs. That's something we all agree on.
Yeah. Are there any artists or I don't know, band members that you would like to cooperate with, to have some joint whatever song? Invite someone to have a joint song for your next album or something. I don't know. Ask Rob Halford, for instance.
I would totally play for him. Absolutely. Well, I think. Well, there are two examples. But that's just I don't know. It would be just an idea. One idea would be to have a song or a cooperation with members from Destruction.
Oh, good.
Because they're long-time old friends. I work for them behind the curtain when they play live, and they recorded in our guitar player Vio Pulver. He owns his own recording studio. That's his main job, and Destruction recorded a lot of albums at his studio, and we played it's now 7 weeks ago when our new album was released. We had the chance to play 2 shows, Friday and Saturday, here in Switzerland.
So they happened.
It happened, yes.
Yeah.
We were lucky because, well, not because of playing with Destruction, because we know us so well. We know us for such a long time, and they're actually like friends. But at that time, like I think 7 weeks ago now, 7 weeks ago. It was possible to play a show here.
Wow.
So, and now, then 2 weeks later, they changed the regulation and it wasn't possible anymore. So we were lucky to just have these 2 shows. And so I think it would be interesting to have a cooperation with them, you know, to get Schmier to have a duet with our singer, maybe something like that. And something else would, I think, would totally fit would to have a guest solo from Gary Holt of Exodus on one of our songs, maybe in the future. I don't know, something like that.
Super.
You know, people that we listen to since we were kids, and that are almost the same age as we are. So something like that. That would be interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think anything can happen in this world.
Of course.
Do you believe in the thing that the world went to hell this year because Slayer disbanded and played their End of the World tour last year?
Well, I think I saw it. A lot of us saw it coming for a lot of years now. We played support for Slayer and I think 2 years ago. Yes, yeah, we were the only support band, and we played for them here in Zurich in Switzerland.
Awesome.
And I've seen them so many times before, and you know they're older, and especially Tom had his health problems with his spine and his neck injury and so on. And you know, we all saw it coming. I'll just say it. I think for a lot of bands, it's better to stop when you're on the peak. You know, when you've done it all, you achieved everything you ever dreamed of, and more, and then when you're getting older, and your heart is not so much in it anymore, or not all band members. You know, I think Kerry King would keep on doing Slayer until his death probably, but I don't think that applies for all the members. Yeah. So I think it was a natural thing to do, and it's probably for the best, I must say, because you know, as you know, when you love a band that much, you don't want to see it in a deteriorating state. You know, you don't want to see them playing bad and you know, and forgetting the lyrics and so on.
Looking tired.
Exactly, and especially that kind of music is very physical. You know, you have to be fit, otherwise you can't play it in that certain way. So I think it's for the best. It's fine. You know, we still have all the albums to listen to. So
totally agree. 2 last questions, because you have an appointment in 5 minutes.
Yes.
Imagine that. The borders are open already, and you get invitation from Kazakhstan to come with several concerts in our country and Central Asia.
Yes.
Which band you would like to accompany you for this tour, except Destruction?
Okay. I would pick, because they're friends too, I would pick Kreator and Sodom.
Oh,
that would be fun.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah. Well, there could be. I know, you know, there are more bands that would be very interesting, but these are just the 2 bands that just came to mind. So.
Yeah. We do have plans on inviting really cool bands from Europe. Max Cavalera was here. Limp Bizkit was here. Sabaton. They will come, I think, by the end of this year.
Okay.
So it's Rotting Christ. They were here, and so the world is a fantastic place.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you so much, and
And thank
see
you.
you one day.
Well, obviously, when there's the possibility, we'll totally fly in, and then we'll have the chance to meet and have a real chat in person.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Stay healthy, and mind yourself, and take care.
Thank you. Thank
Hope
you.
to meet you soon.
Cheers.